let's move on to West Ham, shall we, Dave? Now, there's a lot of calls from West Ham fans to get David Moyes out. And that's a difficult position to kind of take because West Ham are in a really good position in the league still, despite this result. They did have a decent run of form going into this game. They're 8th in the table for a reason. Obviously got a European trophy to the name and still performing pretty well in Europe this season too. So why, this game aside, I guess, why are West Ham fans unhappy with what they're seeing?
It's crazy, isn't it? Like I was saying to you earlier that about Moyes' future surely got being down. And I mentioned a few weeks ago, Miles, I think they had a bad result, and you said, but look how they've performed like over the last week. They've not actually lost that many games. And it is a really strange one because you see the promise in that squad and you see the players that they do have in there, and obviously who they brought in last season, the last couple of years, obviously Paquetá, Kudus, and these are massive players that really should be playing for the top 6 teams, top 4 teams even. And I think that's where you've got to sympathise, I think, with West Ham fans because I think they should be doing better, to be honest. And I think what's got to them where they are this season is the individual brilliance of some of those players. Kudus has won matches on his own. Paquetá has been absolutely superb as well. Jared Bowen, another player who's been key for them over the last couple of years. And the question's always going to be, when are they going to kick on? When is there going to be, this change in? I think it's the style of play as well. Let's be honest, because in this game, fair enough, you're playing against Arsenal, but in a lot of the games they set up quite reservedly. It's very hard to play against. Don't get beat. But actually, I think they just want to see some more free flowing football, and what they are.
I'm going to have to interject there because I think West Ham can do better than 8th is the kind of question I would ask. Can they really? And like the teams above them, it suddenly becomes a big step up in quality from 8th up to even 6th or 5th, doesn't it? As we can see with the Premier League being so competitive at that part of the table at the minute. So I guess the question for you, Miles, is what is it that's making them happy? But also, how do they step up, if that's what you want to call it? Because I'm also of the opinion, I think that David Moyes has done a great job with the team. I think he's got them into some places they wouldn't have dreamed of going previously by fashioning a really effective team that knows how to win. But that's not an always brilliant thing to say about a team. They know how to win and they can win or not lose at least. Sometimes it feels like West Ham just don't want to lose. But I think Dave's point is with the players that he's got at his disposal and the money they've clearly been able to spend, could they do better?
I don't think so, in all honesty. I think you've got to be careful what you wish for because how many teams have we seen get to a position where they're in 8th or around that sort of area, knocking on the door of Europe? Obviously, West Ham have gone beyond that. And then they make a managerial change and it completely backfires. Yes, they've spent money, but have they spent the same amount of money as someone like Newcastle are able to, who are just above them now? Like, look at the teams above West Ham right now. You've got Newcastle, we know the story there, Man United, Tottenham, Arsenal, City, Liverpool, and then, of course, Villa, who I think are a bit of an exception in there because they have Unai Emery. Unless you can go out and get a manager of that sort of quality at West Ham, then I think you've got to be really happy with what you've got. Because let's not forget, they're off the back of winning a European trophy. They're still in the Europa League. To be 8th in the Premier League is excellent. And yes, they've got some good attacking players. Defensively, I think that squad's quite weak, if we're honest. How many of their back line get into any of the teams above them on a regular basis? I don't think many. And I think that obviously showed in this game. They were so open at the back. And normally you've got Alvarez who kind of drops in and helps mop that up a little bit. And he had quite a poor game, obviously was hooked for Calvin Phillips. And when he gets some fitness, then maybe we'll see a different side to West Ham. But I think you have to be careful with West Ham. Obviously, you want a club to have ambition. And I think David Moyes has matched their ambition to a massive degree. You don't want to get carried away with that and then kind of bite off more than you can chew. It's a slow building project. Some of those players will come in and go. That's the nature of a club of West Ham size, where they're big enough to attract those players, but not quite at that elite level to hold on to them. I don't really know what I'd do if I was West Ham. I think I'd be grateful, to be honest.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of Bournemouth's dilemma when they stayed up under, obviously, Gary O'Neill and made the decision to go to Antonio Raiola because of the style of football fundamentally being so important to fans. And you can kind of see why that kind of vision is positive for fans to see. And I think that's the dilemma West Ham fans have now. Do they want to have success or relative success, really? Like you say, 8th in the Premier League is pretty good going, I would say, considering the competition. Or do they want to still have that, but do it in some kind of different style? And again, you're no better off as a team. So why take that gamble? And it is a gamble, isn't it? Changing managers, Dave, at this stage of any season is going to be difficult to kind of find the right manager to step in. So if you're Moyes out, what's the alternative?
I think if we mentioned at the end of last season, though, and we said when he won, obviously, the European competition at the end of last season, we thought this is the perfect moment for him to leave the club, hand the reins over to a new coach, a new manager, and a new chapter for West Ham. And I think that is what should have happened. You look at the players that brought in. You look at Kudus, Alvarez, who's two really good big talents coming from Ajax. A team like Ajax, that does not replicate the style of David Moyes. Like it's complete contradiction altogether. So I think they need a new path. I think fans is on to that as well. I don't think Moyes has done a bad job at all. He's done very well, really. But I think this is as far as he can take the club.
But Dave, who takes them further? Like, what is further? Realistically, right now, you're right. They've got some very talented players. Where should West Ham be then? If it's not 8th and still in the Europa League, realistically, where should West Ham be if you think Moyes hasn't done enough?